The new blue Nanami is out on the global side of the game, and I'm going to be brutally honest, he is not the best character, but he's also not the worst character. He's kind of middle of the tier list, like lower middle of the tier list if we're being completely honest. He's a decent attacker, but I think he's a better supporter in some ways. So we're going to go over his kit, and then we're going to talk about like what skills you want to upgrade first, what teams you want to run on him, and all that other stuff that's going to help you maximize his effectiveness in the game. So he is an attacker type character. He does have a black flash, but he does not have a characteristic here. His skill 1 is called Severance, and it deals melee combined damage equal to 59.6% taijutsu and 59.6% jujutsu damage to the selected enemy. That is at level 1. All of his skills are going to have something like this where it has taijutsu and jujutsu damage. So this is good for a character to have because some characters are immune to either taijutsu damage or they're immune to jujutsu damage. So that means this character can be used in multiple different types of content in the game, which is really nice. He also has, like, if you look at his base stats, a pretty high base crit rate of 65%. Not all other characters have that, so that's actually really good. And then at level 10, there are the percentages for you on his skill 1. His skill 2 is called I Hate Overtime. This skill is probably one of his best command skills that you can use. Increases the effect of any taijutsu damage increase applied to self by 10% and jujutsu damage increase applied to self by 10%. So in other words, if Nanami is buffed with taijutsu damage or jujutsu damage from another character in the game, then he's going to add an additional 10% to that buff. So if you have other characters that are stacking damage buffs on him, he's going to add 10% to each of those buffs whenever you use the skill. So that's actually really, really good. And then additionally, he increases his own damage by 25% for 3 turns. And if you go up to level 10, it goes up to 41.2% for 3 turns. So ideally, with this Nanami, you're going to be using like skill 2 as much as possible, and then using your ultimate to do some pretty big damage. His skill 3 is Let's Just Finish This Quickly, deals melee combined damage equal to 140% taijutsu and 140% jujutsu to the selected enemy for 2 hits. It also increases his own critical hit rate by 25%, which can be good for 3 turns, and I don't think he really needs the crit rate increase. At level 10 it does go up to 41.2%, so that basically gives you almost a 100% crit rate right there, but I don't think it's super necessary. You'll still hit crits, so like this skill's good, but I still think it's better to stack skill 2 and then do the ultimate. So the ultimate is Ratio Technique, deals melee combined damage equal to 318% taijutsu and 318% jujutsu to the selected enemy for 4 hits. Critical hit chance is great, so in other words 100%. Decreases the selected enemy's critical hit resistance by 29.8% for 3 turns. So this is the support I'm talking about. The rest of his stuff isn't really support for the team, but this is. So if you have Nanami as an attacker type unit who's going to do pretty good damage himself, go before another unit like Blue Gojo or someone behind him, right? That means he's going to lower the enemy's critical resist, meaning that unit that goes after him, if it's Blue Gojo, is going to have a higher chance to crit the enemy for bigger damage. So you hit really good damage with this Nanami if you increase his own damage here and potentially increase his crit rate. And then additionally, you lower the enemy's crit resist at level 10 by 45% for 3 turns. And that means Gojo going after him is going to be able to hopefully hit a crit and hit even bigger damage. So I think this support right here is really good. And that's kind of why you want to go like skill 2 as much as possible and then do his ultimate, in my opinion. And then add in the additional auto skill. Going into overtime, at the start of battle, recovers own cursed energy by 30, recovers own cursed energy by 5 every turn, and then fills own ultimate skill gauge by 220. So he's going to be able to get cursed energy back to be able to spam that skill 2. He's going to get ultimate gauge at the beginning of battle. That's going to allow him to get his ultimate quicker. So why not just use skill 2 until you get your ultimate? And then when a black flash or critical hit is performed, increases own taijutsu damage by 5% and jujutsu damage by 5%. And this can stack for up to 6 turns as well. So that's really good when you think about all the damage that he can be performing, and then lowering the crit resist of an enemy is really good support, allowing another attacker behind him to also do really big damage as well. Now, Zone is not in the global side of the game yet. Keep this in mind, please, when you look at this. Zone, though, when it does come, when a black flash is performed, increases own black flash rate by 200%. When that does come out, that is a massive buff to black flash characters, and it's for 4 turns. It's going to help Nanami a lot. Unfortunately, though, It still doesn't really move him further up the tier list, but yeah, he is a very solid character. The biggest problem with him is that like he's kind of a selfish character. Other than with his ultimate, he's just self-buffing pretty much the whole time, so you're not doing a lot of damage. And then with your ultimate, that's where you're going to get your support and damage in. So you're missing a lot of extra damage on the command skills. Now, if the command skill 2 had some damage with it, I would say he would look a whole lot better, but that's still fine. I think this Nanami can be useful in the right scenarios. So we're going to take a look at the community Discord's guide here, and I like going over their guides because it just looks really, really nice. And I'll let you guys know if I agree or disagree with any of their skill orders, any of their recollections that they've chosen, the teams that they put out and stuff like that. And we'll just go over all of that stuff, and I'll give you guys maybe another memory recommendation idea if you're thinking about using this Nanami. So for the skills, the ultimate is the skill you want to upgrade first. As I've already mentioned, this is going to be your main damage skill, and it's also going to be the thing you're using to lower the crit resist of the enemy to allow the character, Gojo, an example of the first team, to go afterwards and hit a big crit. So the ultimate is definitely the most important skill for Nanami. Completely agree with this. And then putting skill 2 next, I also 100% agree with, because you should be spamming this until you get to your ultimate, and then you ult. And then skill 3 should be next, because after you've spammed this ulted, you might have the ability at some point after that to use a skill 3. Skill 3 you might just want to use given the scenario too. Maybe crit rate is more important than damage up, so maybe once in a while you'll want to use your skill 3 to be able to do some damage to the enemy. Also increase your crit rate. Like, it can be useful. You'll just have to, you know, use it sparingly and given the circumstance. And then skill 1 is the last one you want to upgrade, because ideally you're not really using skill 1, because once again, Nanami gives himself cursed energy every turn. So hopefully cursed energy is not going to be a massive problem for you with this character. The materials you need to farm out to get this guy's grade up, you're going to need the decorative ornament and the precious gemstone jewelry, whether that be the green version, the blue version, whatever, you know, you need to farm those out. And then for the memories, I actually really agree with the memories this time around. Sometimes I'm a little bit like, I don't know why they chose these memories, but these memories are absolutely perfect out of the memories I would have chosen on global. There is one more suggestion I have for like gacha memories as an idea, but even then I don't think it's as good as the memories that we have suggested here. So we have Malevolent Shrine and Satoru Gojo solo camping as the free-to-play memories, and then for the summonable memories we have a short break with Divine Dogs, Purifying Duties, Adult Time, and Mission Start. So if you don't know what these do, I'm going to go over them really briefly. If you already know what all of them do, feel free to skip ahead in the video, but Malevolent Shrine is a pretty good SR free-to-play memory, and I call it free-to-play. It's a gacha memory, but it's so easy to obtain. Okay, guys? So when ultimate skill is activated, it increases own damage by 60%. 60% on an SR memory or recollection is really good. At the start of each wave, increases all enemies' taijutsu damage received by 30% for 2 turns as well. That plays in to Nanami's skills very nicely, so that's really good. Satoru Gojo solo camping is probably the best SSR recollection that is free to play that you can run. When command skill or ultimate skill is activated, increases own damage dealt by 60% for 1 turn. That is a very solid damage boost. And then limit break to level 1 at the start of the turn, if own HP is 50% or below, increases own cursed energy consumption efficiency for 3 turns. I actually kind of like Malevolent Shrine a little bit better as a free to play SR recollection more than the SSR recollection, in my opinion. Now, as for the gacha ones, this is the new one that came out on the recent banner with Nanami. Divine Dog Short Break is a very good recollection, specifically designed for him. When ultimate skill is activated, increases own damage dealt by 60%, increases own critical hit rate by 20%, right? So you get the crit hit rate, you get the extra damage. That's going to help Nanami a lot. And then at limit break level 1, when critical hit or black flash is performed, and he's going to hit a crit on his ultimate, increases own taijutsu damage by 10% for 4 turns and jujutsu damage by 10% for 4 turns. I do believe that stacks anytime you hit a crit or a black flash. So this is like literally the best recollection you can run on Nanami, because it's very good. It's going to allow him to increase his damage exponentially more. And then Grand Exorcism is another good option. So when command skill is activated, it's going to do this for 3 turns, increase taijutsu and jujutsu damage by 30%. So that could be really good just for like command skills. I don't think this is going to be like your #1 choice. but it can be okay because you can use it on a command skill and then next turn to your ultimate and still get that extra damage, so it could be okay. And then at Limit Break level 1, at the start of the battle, increases zone damage dealt by 20%. The more Tokyo Jujutsu High students there are at the start of the wave, the higher the damage dealt increase. So if you run Tokyo students, you'll get more damage, add that damage to this damage here, and it's actually not a bad recollection overall. Then you have Adult Time, one of my all-time favorites. When command skill or ultimate skill is activated, it increases zone damage dealt by 70% for 1 turn, 1 time. And then when a critical hit is performed, it increases all allies' critical hit rate by 10% for 2 turns. I think that's going to be really nice as well. I think this one is the recollection you should be running if you are going to run the Gojo team, because then you lower the crit resist of the enemy with Nanami, increase the crit rate of Gojo with Adult Time by 10%, and every little bit helps. So I think Adult Time is actually a very, very good option when it comes to recollections you can potentially run on this character. And then last but not least, for the recommended ones on the guide, Mission Start. When command skill or ultimate skill is activated, increases own critical hit rate by 60%. I don't think this is super necessary on this character. It just guarantees a crit, which is nice for 3 turns. So that's kind of nice if you want guaranteed crits. And then at the start of the 6th turn from the start of the battle, increases own taijutsu damage by 20% and jujutsu damage by 20%. If this was at the start of the battle, just like period, then this would be a very good recollection. But you have to wait till turn 6 for the damage to actually kick in. So this one is probably, out of all of them, my least favorite to go with out of the recommended. And then lastly, my recommendation as an option is Like-Minded Sisters. Now, Like-Minded Sisters does only give taijutsu damage, but it gives taijutsu damage by 80% when the ultimate's activated, which can be really good. But then the reason I recommend this is because of the Limit Break level 1. When critical hit is performed, fills own ultimate skill gauge by 200, activates up to 1 time per turn. This could be really good on Nanami, who once again is going to be a character that is going to be able to hit a lot of crits, hopefully, so that's going to allow him to get his ultimate a little bit quicker, and that's going to allow you to hopefully get more damage in and lower their crit resist more often, ultimately helping your team. So I do think Like-Minded Sisters is a very solid option as far as recollections go for this character. Only downside being it only buffs your taijutsu damage and not your jujutsu damage as well. Now, on to the breakdown. Let's take a look at their reasoning here. So, decent combined damage, attacker with multiple hits, multiple self buffs, high crit rate, and black flash damage. Yes, all really good stuff. Deals damage, which has high crit rate and lower opponent crit resist with the ultimate. I think the best thing is the lowering of the crit resist. Like, that's not to be overlooked. That's very, very good. Increases damage and buff efficiency with skill 2. Pairs well with taijutsu and jujutsu buffers. Apply stackable crit rate buff to self while dealing damage with skill 3. Cursed energy and ult regen every turn and receive damage buff on crit or black flash with passive. Black flash chance increases after black flash with special and co-op ult. The downside though, he's not going to be able to deal much damage if he's not able to land a black flash. And so that's why it's so important when this buff does come out later that you have the zone state. That zone state is going to make Nanami a lot better. But right now on global, that's a large part of what holds him back, is he's not able to land the black flashes as efficiently and as easily. Now, as for the teams, 100% agree with the teams. I really like the first team if you are going to be using him more as a support character to lower the crit resist. Gojo, of course, is going to be your main damage. And then you can run the Nanami overtime carry where you have Blue Inumaki here. Blue Inumaki and Nanami can work interestingly together. And then you have Kaido to give cursed energy. So you should be able to just like spam buffs with like Yaga and stuff onto Nanami, and Nanami will be able to increase those buffs once again with his skill 2, because his skill 2 increases Jujutsu and Taijutsu buffs by 10% each time he gets buffed. Whenever you use this skill, I should be more specific. So that's going to be really good as well. Those are two of the best teams that you can run him on. Generally, those are the teams I would run him on. Now, if you wanted to switch out some of the characters, you don't have to run Nishimiya. You don't have to run Inumaki. They are interchangeable, obviously. You don't have to even run Yaga. You could run other blue characters. There's plenty of, like, you could run Blue Itadori if you wanted. Throw a Blue Itadori. Like, you could run, like, Nishimiya in the first slot. Run Blue Itadori here to give ultimate gauge to Nanami even more, so Nanami will be able to get his ult even faster, and then Gojo will still be able to benefit because that crit resist down lasts for 3 turns from Nanami, so Gojo can still skill 1 and benefit from it. So that's an idea as well. But there's just always infinite teams you can run and try out. I do think in general, though, these are going to be like the 2 best teams you can run with Nanami. And then as for duping, do I think it is worth it to dupe out this Nanami? I do think anytime you have an attacker, it's nice to get at least 1 dupe into the attacker for that extra damage that you're able to get for the character. So the extra percentage of damage is very, very big, and it would actually be super helpful to this character. But I think as it stands, he's not like gonna ever be top of the tier list unless they do a massive buff in the future. I don't think it's worth necessarily duping him. I don't even think it's worth necessarily pulling for him right now. So if you did pull for him and you got him, congratulations. Maybe you got him off the tickets. If you're thinking about pulling for him, my recommendation is to not, but you know, do what you want to do. And hopefully if you got him, this guide helps you out. Maybe you're watching it when he first came out or in the future. But if you did enjoy the video, please consider going down there, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button. And thank you guys so much for watching and supporting the channel. Peace.